Hi guys, let's talk about how you apply factorization method in solving quadratic equation. Now it follows one basic rule, so listen attentively to get the whole idea. Whenever you have a quadratic equation given as ax squared plus bx plus c, once it's in this form, what you simply do is multiply ax squared by c. So if I multiply ax squared multiplied by c, so this will give me ac x squared. Now you'll be looking for two numbers. You'll be looking for two numbers that when you add up, it will give you bx. But when you multiply them, it should give you ac x squared. Now in this form, it will be very difficult to look for two numbers that when you add up, it will give you bx, and when you multiply, it will give you ac x squared. But we're using arbitrary numbers, that's numbers that don't really exist. Now, if you want to use this idea to play with this question, you will get more light about what I'm talking about. So you have p squared minus 10p minus 24. Let's factorize. So if I compare this guy with ax squared plus bx plus c, so this is p squared minus 10p minus 24 to be equal to 0. So my a here is equal to 1, that's the coefficient of p squared. My b here is equal to minus 10, and my c here is equal to minus 24. So we are multiplying ax squared. So in this case, we are dealing with ap squared. This is minus 10p, and this is minus 24. So we are working with p. So multiply this guy by this guy. So p squared multiplied by minus 24 will give us minus 24 p squared. So we'll be looking for two numbers that when you add up, it will give you minus 10p, but when you multiply them, it will give you minus 24 p squared. Now when you want to do this for the very first time, ignore the p squared and the p. So focus on minus 24. Bring out the possible combination that can give you minus 24. So I know that if I'm to get minus 24, I will either do minus 1 multiplied by 24, or 24 multiplied, or 1 multiplied by minus 24. Now let's move on to 2. You can also have 2 multiplied by minus 12, or minus 2 multiplied by 12. Move on to 3. You can have 3 multiplied by minus 8, or minus 3 multiplied by 8. The next one, you have 4. 4 multiplied by minus 6, or minus 4 multiplied by 6. Then I believe 5 cannot go. We've already worked with 6, we've worked with 8. So these are the possible outcome that can give you a negative 24. So everything here, when I multiply them, it will give me negative 24. So these are the possible multiplication that will give me negative 24. Now check which of them here will you add up that will give you a negative 10. Which of them here will you add up that will give you a negative 10? So 24 minus 1, if I'm to add up this guy, 24 minus 1, 24 minus 1 will give me a 23. Okay, that marker is not good. 24 minus 1 will give me a 23. Minus 24 plus 1 will give me a negative 23. Minus 12 plus 2 will give me a negative 10. 12 minus 2 will give me a positive 10. 3 minus 8 is negative 5. Minus 3 plus 8 will give me 5. 4 minus 6 will give me a negative 2. And minus 4 plus 6 will give me 2. Now, which of them is giving us a negative 10? It is simply 2 and negative 12. It is simply 2 and negative 12. So that simply means that if I add up 2p and minus 12p, I will get a negative 10p. Also, if I multiply 2p by minus 12p, I will get a negative 24p squared. So I will bring out this guy here. And put my p squared. In place of negative 10p, I'm changing my negative 10p to a positive 2p minus a negative 12p. So you can see that 2p minus 12p will give me negative 10p. In fact, any of this combination here, any of the combination here, if I multiply them, it will give me the product of these two guys. But I cannot put minus 1 plus 24 here, because minus 1 plus 24 will not give me a negative 10. So that's why we are working with the one that when you add up, it should give you what is your bx, in this case, which is what? Negative what? 10p. So in place of negative 10p, I have a positive 2p minus 12p, which can be represented as what? Negative 10p. Then I will drop this last guy here, which is negative 24, to be equal to 0. Now I can factorize 2 at a time. factorizing p squared plus 2p. So we have a p squared plus 2p, one bracket, negative, yeah, we have a 12p plus 24, another bracket is equal to 0. So you can see I've grouped them into two in such a way that p squared plus 2p is p squared plus 2p. I factor out the negative one from here, so I'll be left with 12p plus 24p. Because if I multiply minus 1 by 12p, I should get a negative 12p. Multiply minus 1 by 24, I should get a negative 24. Now, what is the ACF here? The ACF here is p, so I'll bring out p. So this will be p into p plus 2 minus what is common here, you have 12 into p plus 2 is equal to 0. So the moment you get to this particular point, if the value here and the value here are different, it means that you are doing something wrong and there's nothing that can be done. So you make sure that you solve in such a way that this value here must be equal to the value here. If they are different, it means that what we are solving is most likely not correct. Now that we've gotten that, the next step is still to factorize again. I remember when we were doing factorization under algebraic process, I taught you guys how to factorize something like this, because this is one term and this is another term. So p plus 2 is common, so I'll factor out a p plus 2. If I factor out a p plus 2, I'll be left with p for this first guy, and I'll be left with negative 12 for the other guy, and that will be equal to 0. Now from here you can see that your p plus 2 is equal to 0 and p minus 12 is equal to 0. Rather, p plus 2 equals 0 or p minus 12 is equal to 0. So in this case, p will be equal to negative 2. In this case, p will be equal to 12. So that's the answer to this question. And what does this mean? If I substitute my negative 2 into this equation, it should give me 0. Also, if I substitute my 12 into this equation, it should also give me 0. So let's try it out. If I put negative 2 here, this will give me a positive 4. Put a negative 2 here. Negative 2 times negative 10 will give me a positive 20. And this will give me a negative 24. 4 plus 20, 24. 24 minus 24 is 0. Similarly, let's put 12 here. Put 12 here. 12 whole squared is 144. Minus 10 times 12 is 120. Then you have minus what? 24. Minus 120 minus 24 will give me minus 144. So this will also give me 0. So our answer is very correct. Now that we've done that, so the next question, we're not going to be going into details on how we get the factors, because I believe that it is clear now. So let's play with the next question. Now for the next question, we are given f squared plus 25f plus 150 to be equal to 0. Now we're going to multiply f squared by 150, that's 150 f squared. Two numbers that when you add up, it will give you 25, and when you multiply, it will give you 150. What are the numbers? Now, from what I can see, I know that I can have a 1 multiplied by 150. I can have a 2 multiplied by 75. I can have a 3 multiplied by 50. I have a 3 multiplied by 50. So I don't need to go into details on all of them. I know that I can have a 10 multiplied by 15. So 10 multiplied by 15 can also give us 150. And it is obvious that 10 plus 15 will give us 25. So since 10 plus 15 is giving us 25 and 10 times 15 is giving us 150, we can work with that, because this is 1 times 150, which is what? 150. So yeah, we have f squared plus 10f plus 15f plus 150 is equal to 0. Now I'll factor 2 at a time. This place you have f into f plus 10 plus, in this case, you are going to have 15 into f plus 10 to be equal to 0. Now f plus 10 and f plus 10 are constants, so you have, is common rather. So you are going to have f plus 10, factoring out f plus 10. I'll be left with f for the first bracket and left with 15 for the second bracket to be equal to 0. So it is either f plus 10 is equal to 0 or f plus 15 is equal to 0. In this case, f will be equal to negative 10, and in this case, f will be equal to negative 15. So these are the possible answers. So on your own, you can check if these answers are correct. That means if you put them into this expression, it should be equal to 0. Now the next question, 15 minus 2e minus e squared equal to 0. So you have 15 minus 2e minus e squared to be equal to 0. Now we can start by factorizing this way, or we can choose to move everything to the right hand side. So if I move everything to the right hand side, or multiply through by -1 so that this guy can be a positive value. If I do that, multiply through by -1, this will give me a -15, a positive 2e, a positive e squared to be equal to 0, because -0, positive 0, nothing has changed. So what did I do? I multiply it by -1 and I multiply it by -1. So 0 will not change. -1 times 0 remains what? 0. Now I can rearrange by bringing e squared first. So this is e squared plus 2e. -15 is equal to 0. Now you ask yourself, two numbers, when you multiply it will give you 15. When you add up, it will give you 2. Sorry, when you multiply it will give you a -15. And when you add up, it will give you 2. I believe those two numbers is simply +5 and -3. +5 times -3 is -15. +5 minus 3 is positive 2. So this is e squared plus 5e minus 3e minus 15 is equal to 0. So this will give us e into e plus 5. This will give us -3 into e plus 5 is equal to 0. So we are going to be having e plus 5 and e minus 3 to be equal to 0. So it is either e plus 5 is equal to 0 or e minus 3 is equal to 0. In this case, e will be equal to -5. In this case, e will be equal to what? 3. So that's the answer to the question. Over to the last question, 2h squared minus 5h plus 3 equals 0. So I believe I can solve that here. Now, like I said in our previous video, not all quadratic expressions or not all quadratic equations can be solved using factorization method. That's why we have completing the square and formula method, which can solve any quadratic equation. So there are cases whereby after looking for the product, you can't have any two numbers that when you add, it will give you this, and when you multiply, it will give you this. I can formulate any question by saying x squared plus 2x minus 200 is equal to 0. Now, two numbers, when you multiply, it will give you 200. When you add up, it will give you 2. I think there will be no answer to this. So you cannot see any two numbers like that. So you can try it on your own. And if there's any two number, you can leave that in the comment section. By that, you will see. So this type of question cannot be solved using factorization method, but it can be solved using completing the square or formula method. Now let's move on to the business of the day. 2 multiplied by 3 will give us 6, or we say 2h squared multiplied by 3 will give you 6h squared. Now two numbers, when you add up, it will give you -5h. When you multiply, it will give you positive 6h squared. Now I believe we are going to have a 6, a -2 and a -3, yeah? A -2 and a -3. -2 multiply -3 is equal to 6. -2 plus -3 is equal to -5. Now, on no occasion can you have two possible values that can be here. That means if -2 minus 3 is the solution here, it means 6 and -1 can never be the solution. It means -6 and 1 can never be the solution, like the case may be. So you can only have one possible set of numbers that can stay here. So in this case, -2 minus 3. So this is 2h squared minus 2h minus 3h plus 3 is equal to 0. So what is common here? You have 2h into 1 minus, into h minus 1. So you have -3 into h minus 1 is equal to 0. So h minus 1 is common. We are left with 2h minus 3 to be equal to 0. So this will give us h minus 1 is equal to 0, or 2h minus 3 is equal to 0. So h will be equal to 1, or 2h will be equal to 3. So h is 1 or h is 3 over 2. So these are the possible answers to this question. So that's how you approach questions under under factorization method. Now next video we'll move on to formula method. We derive the formula and show you how you apply it. Thanks for watching this amazing video. If you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe button, share button, and you can leave your comment below. Thanks for watching once more. See you guys in my next video.